the NBA players, the NFL players especially, the MLB players, they call us all the time. Hey, I want to play Call of Duty with Scump. Hey, I want to play Fortnite with Benji. Hey, can I get in with the Rocket League guys?
You know, it's childish, but I do quite like that that piece of free music. So thank you to whoever made that. Welcome, everybody, to week 2 of the Campaign Mode podcast. This week is a cracker. But if you haven't listened before, because it's only the second week, I won't blame you. What the Campaign Mode podcast is all about is about deconstructing the world of brands and gaming. So how do brands work with gamers? How do gamers work with brands? How does business and gaming live together? And what magic is happening at the intersection of those two things? And that is what this show's all about. And let me make sure here for a second that my levels are all fine, because I'm sure you'll all tell me if they're not, but they seem to be working fine. I have had some problems with the autofocus on this camera. Hopefully they're fixed for this particular one. It doesn't really matter if you're listening, but if you are watching on YouTube and it is a bit focusy, my apologies. Needless to say, let's get on with the show. Today on the show, we have... Wait, who am I? Who am I, you're asking? My name is Dan Bennett. I am grey in the beard from many a year working in the advertising and brand space. And I should also admit to also spending time over that same period gaming. So I'm a gamer and an ad guy and a combination of the two. And that's why we're bringing this to you. So today's show has Andy Miller on it. Now, Andy Miller is might be known to some of you, may not be known to others. Andy Miller, you'll certainly know the companies that Andy has started or indeed worked for or owns. So Andy goes back and talks a little bit about his time at Apple reporting to Steve Jobs. He then talks a bit about his experience in the sports world, because Andy's one of the co-owners of the Sacramento Kings NBA basketball team, national basketball team. I guess that's sort of, I'm English, give me a break. And 5 years ago, he founded the NRG Esports organization, and that's primarily what we're going to talk to Andy about on today's show. So the NRG team have had a great 18 months. Last year, they won a bunch of things. I believe they're Overwatch World Champions right now. He gets into a little bit about that in the interview. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. I spoke to Andy earlier over Zoom. So I'm going to cut to the Zoom version of me and the Zoom version of Andy, and I hope you enjoy it, and I'll be back for some more waffle after the interview. Take it away. Okay, I want to thank Andy Miller for joining the podcast today. Thank you, mate, for joining the Campaign Mode podcast. At the beginning of this, what I like to do for the people listening and watching is to hand over to our guest and ask for the 5-minute or the 2-minute Andy Miller. If we could, I'm sure a lot of people listening will know who you are, certainly know the organizations, but I'd love to go back a few steps and just understand where you come from. I know, but would you mind giving us those 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, sure. It's so funny when you ask people to introduce yourself.
I know.
When you're on a panel with like 4 other guys, you always know who's the guy who's going to spend like 9 minutes on himself.
Right. You can take 9, man. It's just us.
Yeah, right. It's a complete reflection of your personality by the longer you spend. You're either like, oh, I did one, I don't know this guy, and then it's the guy who's like, then when I was 14, I went to the Grand Canyon, But so I'm Andy, originally from Boston, and was a failed lawyer and then a mobile entrepreneur, and was involved in starting a couple companies. One of them was called M-Cube, which horrible name for all you marketers out there, lowercase m hyphen capital QUBE. So good luck trying to find that on the on our website. But that was one of the first, really a first mobile marketing company turned into a sort of aggregator of carrying content and doing billing and interoperability between carriers out of Boston, and sold that to VeriSign in 2006. And started another company called Quattro Wireless, which became one of the bigger mobile ad networks in the world, and sold that to Apple in really late December 2009, and moved out here to California, worked at Apple as VP of mobile advertising, reported to Steve Jobs for a couple of years. And since then, I've been doing a bunch of different things, got into the sports world, where I'm a co-owner of the Sacramento Kings of the NBA, had a minor league baseball team for a little bit with the Colorado Rockies, and now found myself somehow spending all my time in video games. Started an organization called NRG, with a guy, Mark Masteroff, who's the founder of 24 Hour Fitness and a co-owner of the Kings, and Shaquille O'Neal. And we play video games. We have teams playing at the highest level of sort of professional gaming or esports, and create a lot of gaming culture and sort of content around all things gaming.
Have you seen it? I mean, the explosion in the last few years. You're a busy guy. The explosion in the last few years of esports has been remarkable to watch. How have you seen NRG evolve, even just in the last 12 months with how it's operating?
Well, esports has been really interesting. So we've been at it for about 5 years now with NRG, and we got into it, and boy, when we jumped in, Mark and I, both sort of pretty involved with the Kings. We were like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We can run some, we know sports. It's probably not much different from the minor league baseball team we were running. I was helping run, and it was brutally different. And we got our butt kicked like right off the bat, and it was much more structured and organized than I thought. And from a competitive standpoint, we were in League of Legends. People had long histories, and they had analysts and coaches and infrastructure and academy teams. And we were like, wow, okay. So over the years, we spent a lot of time building the infrastructure to be a competitive team and be a world-class, world-known competitive squad. And that all culminated last year. We won like everything we were in. We were world champions for Overwatch League and for Rocket League, and we won like all big Apex tournaments and Fortnite tournaments. It was great. But what we've really seen in the development of esports is two things. One, a real structure, formation around traditional sports for the most part. Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, League of Legends franchise in ways that are very similar to owning the Sacramento Kings, especially with Overwatch and Call of Duty. There's a localization. Our org, NRG, has 6 or so teams under the brand NRG, but also the Chicago Huntsmen for Call of Duty, most popular Call of Duty team in the world, and the San Francisco Shock for Overwatch League. So like that's interesting, and it has distribution deals and sponsors and local events and merch, and it's not much different than being an NBA team. And then on the other side, we've seen really this explosion of gaming becoming mainstream, probably because of Fortnite, where every mom or ad exec saw their nephew or kid spending 8 billion hours playing Fortnite over the last year and a half, and said, maybe this is actually a thing where people spend their time, regardless of whether they're on the football team or the debate team. They all game together, and so we've just seen an explosion in kind of the content and the culture around gaming and mainstreaming it, and realizing that it's pretty cool, and 1 in 3 people on the planet game like every day.
How do you take, we spoke last week with Earl Patton, who is the CMO of Unanimous Games, Rock Nation's gaming group. One of the things they do is work with their gamers, influencers, the folks that they work with and manage to some extent, and help them get a little bit of a grip and understanding on the sort of business side of the gaming equation. How do you, because your operation, your teams are extremely successful, as you mentioned, at a big year last year, but how are you guys doing that with your athletes in that case?
Well, on the celebrity side, so it's interesting. NRG started with a lot of celebrity investors. It was kind of our thing. It wasn't really intentional. Like we didn't go out and say, hey, Shaq, do you want to be a partner? He kind of found us. We added Alex Rodriguez, who joined our board, and Jennifer Lopez, and then and Jimmy Rollins, really our first guy, and Ryan Howard, Marshawn Lynch, Tiesto. Like you started growing across different entertainment genres. But and then the NBA players, the NFL players, especially the MLB players, they call us all the time. Hey, I want to play Call of Duty with Scump. Hey, I want to play Fortnite with Benji. Hey, can I get in, with the Rocket League guys? And that's really cool. And then you start to realize, like, wow, like, the average basketball, De'Aaron Fox, is a star of the Kings, is not much older than any of the guys who are the stars of our teams, right? They're contemporaries, and they play the same things and they enjoy themselves. When our guys aren't playing Call of Duty, they're shooting baskets. When De'Aaron Fox isn't shooting baskets, he's playing Call of Duty. So you see this sort of crossover and realize that there's not much difference in the audiences. And then as far as the business side is concerned, it's evolved pretty significantly, like on steroids over the last couple of years. Most every major player has an agent or a manager or both. And, used to be just dealing directly with mom or dad or themselves if they were old enough. And now it's pretty sophisticated, and they do very well from their own sponsors, our salaries, prize money. But the big thing really is streaming and the dollars they make off of Twitch or the deals they cut with YouTube.
Right. And certainly in recent, I would say, activations from a brand point of view, we've started to see some of those stars, some of those superstars in this space demanding, and deservedly so, numbers much more akin to what we might be used to in the sports world or the broader celebrity world. And that's been interesting to see over the past couple of years, candidly. What about, so one of the things we talk about on the podcast is the gaming side, the gamer side of the equation. And I think you guys have a massive amount of insight into that. But pertinent to NRG, and then to some extent from your experience with the Kings, I suppose, as well, where are you seeing the most progressive or adventurous brands and businesses get involved in this? Because we know that there are several things that drive the gaming world, the gaming industry, and not all of it, of course, is brand and business and sponsorship focused, but certainly a large percentage of it is. What sort of activations have you noticed recently, and how can the best brands start to think about this?
Well, I mean, it's a cliche to say you got to be authentic, but it definitely is, because you're dealing with the internet, you're dealing with live streaming. So if you kind of come in and try and get bolted on to something, it's usually going to backfire. It'll change someday, but it's still the phenomenon that if you come in and do something in a decent way, the support you'll get from the community you enter as a brand is like no other. Like when you come in, Wendy's, for example. Wendy's, we did a bunch of things with, but they have such a great social media presence, and they get the internet. And we started small. They came in, they wanted to get involved with Smash and those games. And they sponsored NRG and Nairo, our Smash god. And he was live on stream, and we surprised him with like a doorbell rang, and we gave him I forget it was like 500 orders of Wendy's Frosties and fries and stuff. And then his chat, we gave out to his chat the little emoji of the Wendy's girl. And for, forever, it was just a waterfall of little Wendy's, heads there in the chat, and people talking about how great Wendy's was. And then we had the chatbot say where the local Wendy's was to you if you wanted to go get it, when we used to be able to go out and go out of our house and get
some those days.
Those are the days, yeah. And it was amazing. And just the love that they got and the love that the brand got for something so simple was really well done.
They did that. I don't know if you saw it, but the campaign where they put the Wendy's character, as it were, into Fortnite. Do you see that, where she went around smashing up freezers to get rid of frozen beef?
Yeah, smart, right?
Really smart. One of those things you look at, you're like, God, I wish we'd thought of that one.
Yeah, we have Game Fuel Mountain Dew as a sponsor for the Huntsman with the folks at OMD, and they've done great stuff. So they've done all levels. Like, they are an official sponsor of the Call of Duty League, so they're on all the broadcasts. They do all the high level stuff. They have work with specific influencers like Courage. They sponsored his COVID fundraiser, which was great. And then at a team level, we're their guys for Call of Duty for the Huntsman, and we do all sorts of different stuff. We do crazy videos. They sponsor our live programming. We did a crossover between, they also sponsor NRG, between the NRG and the Huntsman, and we brought some shot players in, and we mixed up all the players kind of like in a playground style, pick your team, and did a Warzone, the new Call of Duty Battle Royale tournament. And it was great because our players had a blast doing it, and we integrated all the Game Fuel clips and drinks on screen, and it was really organic, and it just felt like, hey, here's a bunch of friends coming together, and they are, drinking their, bringing their Mountain Dew along for the ride, and it just had a great, really authentic feel for it, and got really big numbers from all their streams, and OMD and Game Fuel were really happy.
So that's interesting. I mean, the angle into that then, from a business brand point of view, seems to have been the genesis for that. Sounds like it was from a media partnership, right? If you're coming through IMD or
right.
conversations about media and sponsorship, and some of those quite traditional mechanisms agencies and brands are used to pulling, but the way that you delivered that once the media piece was sorted was actually kind of perfectly creative and as you said, ideally authentic. How did the manifestation of that idea come about? Did that come out of, and was that an NRG idea, or did that come from Mountain Dew? How did that end up being?
Yeah, that was an NRG idea. So they work with us, and we say, what are some ideas? What can we do? We presented a whole bunch of different things. That was a mother of necessity invention, because they were supposed to be sponsoring our live events. They were going to be in Chicago at Wintrust Arena. They were going to be on the road with us. We had sort of a docu-series, a follow series with our team on the road. And those ended. So we said, what can we do that's, now when we're all sort of in our, apartments and houses, and came up with that.
That's actually I appreciate that segue into a question I wanted to get to with you, and I can't avoid it. I've been trying to talk as little about the coronavirus situation as possible because it's everywhere, but there is an interesting moment right now in gaming, which is there was already huge momentum, but now we're in this isolation, this lockdown globally. We're seeing the numbers around this. I mean, even if you just look at like the Travis Scott
huge
on Fortnite, they're huge. They're huge, unprecedentedly huge. How do you think? How do you see it changing right now? And what does it look like when we come out of this? And no one's going to hold you to this, but what are you thinking about as hopefully 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks down the road, we're in a new world order?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is going to be as far as, specific brands, or we're going to see viewership, maintain or whatever. But I think what's going to happen is it's pretty hard to escape the fact that everybody plays games. Like that was our thesis in getting into it 5 years ago, because my kids, I got nerdy theater kids, and Mark Masterov has like giant Nordic Division I athletes, and they all hang out together because they all play games together. It's the great equalizer. You don't have to be 6'5" to be good at Call of Duty. So it's obvious, but it's really in front of your face if you're a marketer now. Like, it's pretty hard to ignore gaming and the size of it, and the accessibility of it, and the fact that it's all about community. Like, people are quick to blame games for lots of things, from gun violence to mental health or whatever, but it's just an excuse, right? You can look to a million places and countries that have just as much gameplay and no gun violence and than these other issues. So, but what you see now is that there's a game for everyone, there's a community for everyone, and this is where people make friends and spend their time, and it's completely authentic. Thus, going back to when Wendy's comes in and says, "Hey, I want to I want to put my brand and money in front of the fighting game community." The fighting game community is like, "Let's go! We love Wendy's." Even if I never tried Wendy's, they feel like someone is validating my passion, and the rewards for the brand are tremendous.
Right,
it's real acquisition for them.
So it's interesting you mentioned that. I've had conversations in the past with my branding, marketing hat on, with some of the biggest gaming platforms. And I won't mention them because we're going to have them on this, but rightly so, especially the most robust, most popular ones, have an attitude which seems to be, we'll work with brands if the fit's right, but it isn't a matter of, and this isn't what a lot of advertising agencies and brands are used to. Brands are used to turning up with their dollars and saying, we want some space or some airtime or a logo on there. And I've noticed that some of these games with a hugely dedicated following are being quite picky about, which brands they'll take on, which brands can play a role in their narrative, which ones might not work. Is that something across the board, or do you think it's just some of those bigger titles that have the opportunity to say, we'll pick and choose who we work with?
I think they want to see, like you said with Travis Scott, like they would like to have a brand that helps amplify the game. So Call of Duty is really kind of a hip hop game. Actually, it's the the NBA of esports and gaming. So they kind of want a brand that reflects that, and they want it to work. Well, I think it's on the other way around. What you saw was a lot of brands saying before, "I'm not sure about gaming. Is there gun violence? Or oh, there's a bomb in this game, or there's a gun," and that's quickly disappearing.
Right.
We're having talks with everybody who've always said this isn't the right thing for my brand, or they have this image that it's a bunch of fat pasty kids in their basement eating Tostitos and never leaving and seeing the sun, and then the opposite comes out and they go and they look at some of these pro players and they're like, oh, this guy played basketball at Kentucky and this guy was a
Right.
wrestler, and it's not and they're having long careers and they're working out and they have more viewers than the average basketball player.
And then it shows up on HBO's Ballers, and the rest of the people are like, oh, okay, right.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to ignore. I'm actually kind of fascinated still. I mean, I've been deep in it for the last 5 years, and we still have conversations with brands, and they're like, so let me get this straight. People watch other people play games on their computer screen, and they go to live events to do that?
Right.
I was like, yeah. I mean, how many football games have you been to where, in a stadium with 80,000 people when you're sitting on the 10-yard line? And let me guess, you're watching the 80% of the game on the Jumbotron on the other side because you can't see what's going on there. It's not much different. Or you're home watching, do you watch someone play golf? Yes. Why? Oh, it's relaxing. I play golf myself. These are the best players in the world. Why wouldn't I want to watch them and see how they play? I'm like,
right.
Okay, what's the difference?
Not to mention the fact that some of the streamers, and not even some of the top streamers, go to such lengths to be creative,
It's so entertaining,
communicate well, to be entertaining. There's a massive wrapper of entertainment around this that fascinates me. How do you think about or work with, or what sort of advice do you have for those emerging streamers, those emerging gamers coming up, not just in the business from a business point of view, but how do you think about advising them as it relates to growing what it is they do, professionalizing what it is they do?
Yeah, there's two parts to it. So there are folks who want to be pro players, and that's it. And they, we have two great examples. We have a guy for Fortnite, which has an odd competitive scene, but as for illustrative purposes, if you will, this kid named Zate, and he is cracked. He's amazing, and he wins, and he is all about winning. And he's all about the community, and he helps other pros, and he doesn't like to stream, and he's not a huge self-promoter, although he's slowly warming to it. And that's what he does. And then we have a kid, Benji Fishy, in UK, who's one of the most popular Fortnite players and streamers, period, in the world. And he's amazing, and he's hilarious, and he's adorable, and he's still awesome, and he commands this huge audience. And they have a whole different approach to becoming popular and trying to have a career out of this thing. And if you look at Benji Fishy's numbers, like over the course of a year, I was on the board of the Weather Channel for 7 years, and Benji's got bigger numbers probably over the course of the year, unless there's a hurricane in New York and an earthquake in San Francisco. Consistently, Benji's going to probably put up a bigger day. He streams 8, 9, and 10 hours a day. He can average 20,000 concurrents every minute of a group of, not 80-year-old people at home watching the Weather Channel, and a bunch of 15 to 30-year-olds, and he's funny and topical and interesting, and it's pretty amazing when you think about it.
And you hit on something there which we should establish again, because you did mention it earlier, but it warrants bringing back up for the marketeers and brand folks we have listening. That age range, the sweet spot, the hard to reach, the low end of the Gen Z, certainly huge in relation to this. But some of the largest growth areas are the other end of the scale, right? The older end of the spectrum. And it doesn't have to be necessarily Fortnite, but gaming more broadly. That's fascinating to me. I don't know whether you're seeing that trickle down into some of the teams or the events and the.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll ask you, like, what marketers don't totally understand is that the reason why we think we offer, self-plug, but NRG and the other big orgs who have multiple games and multiple teams and multiple games, is that every community is really pretty different. Like, if I love Overwatch, I'm probably not watching any Call of Duty ever. And if I'm Call of Duty, I'm not into, League of Legends. So, and then they're different. So you have this cohort, right? Fortnite's young. League of Legends is older. Counter-Strike's even older. Counter-Strike's more European. Call of Duty's more Midwestern. The fighting games, Smash, are more inner city. So you have to understand, who you're dealing with. But you start to do the math. Like, you go to we won the Overwatch World Championship in Philadelphia at Wells Fargo Arena. Sold out, 12,000 people there. And you walked around, average age, probably 30.
Yeah.
Not what you'd expect. Pretty affluent. Flew in. It was San Francisco versus Vancouver. There was no Philly team. There was no New York team. People didn't come in for that. Tickets had sold out months before. So everybody flew in, spent a bunch of money, had a great time. We had a fan event. Incredible. We'll go to the Fortnite World Cup, which maybe you went to in New York last summer with, I don't remember how many people over those days, 60,000 people.
Yeah.
Average age outside of the parents taking their kids there, 16, 15. Yeah. So big difference, right? You got to understand who the audience is. It's a bunch of different communities, but they all have the same commonality of being a gamer, but not necessarily identifying themselves as a gamer. That's what I think brands forget. I think if they think it's a gamer, then that's who they are, gamer label. No, it's a kid who's on the debate team who also games to keep in touch with his other friends, right? It's a guy who goes to work every day who wants to come home and listen to my co-CEO, Hector Rodriguez, because he's been the godfather of esports forever, and he listens to him in the morning, and then he comes home and watches his vlog at night because he's part of this community.
It's interesting because I guess I'm a gamer and I play on a few different platforms. But I don't describe myself as that usually. But also, I play soccer. I don't call myself a soccer player, right? I'm a dad at work. I do all these things, and you're right. The combination effect of all these things is probably what's propelling a lot of this in terms of some of that, the normalization of that.
That's a really good point. Like, we try and label people, because gamer had a stigma to it.
Right.
And it doesn't anymore. That's my point. I think if COVID's done anything, it's shown marketers and brands and everybody's a gamer, whatever you want to play, right? I play at night with my family. We play Jackbox or whatever that is. It's little fun games, so we don't kill each other, but it's still gaming, right? Are we going to go out and be like, gamer, I'm a gamer t-shirt? No, but it's something I enjoy doing, just like we enjoy playing soccer also. And once you get past that, then you realize it's just an audience that you need to be in front of.
I had a fun little insight today. My 5-year-old, whom I'm attempting to homeschool, had a 15-minute chat with his teacher and a few of his mates at school, and they had to write some persuasive writing. And I didn't realize he'd written some persuasive writing about the fact that his screen from Mario Kart isn't good enough. And the teacher said, "So what do you got to write about, Teddy?" And he said, "Well, I play Mario, and I need a better screen because my screen's not good enough, so I'm going to ask my dad." And she wanted to pick apart the writing, but she didn't have a chance because all the other little dudes on the call jumped in saying, I've got Mario, wait, what character? And it just totally blew up the whole story.
It's chaos.
Right? The next order coming through, it's fascinating. So we're probably coming up on me having monopolized enough of your time, but unless there's anything particular you want to drop in here in relation to marketers or gamers, I'll probably wrap up with you. I want to thank you for taking half an hour of your time to chat to us. I couldn't think of a better person in this space to spend half an hour chatting and riffing on this stuff with. We'll hope you come back one day. I mean, maybe even in person when we're allowed out of our basements and our houses. So I want to thank Andy Miller from NRG and the Sacramento Kings for joining us on the Campaign Mode podcast. Thanks very much, bud. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. Andy Miller, everybody. These are my notes, although we went way off of those. Thank you to Andy's brilliance. I want to thank Andy for being on the show, and we will link to the NRG Esports group and all the stuff that Andy discussed in the show notes, so you can click through and find out more information should you need to. Also in the show notes, you will be able to connect to us here at Campaign Mode. You can email us at hello@campaignmode.com, hello@campaign-mode.com. One of those things. It'll be in the show notes, and it'll be correct in the show notes. So that's probably going to wrap it up for this week. If you have questions for us, do drop us a line or just share some love with us. In the next few weeks, we're going to have some more interesting gaming and marketing insiders, so stay tuned for that. You should probably like or subscribe or download or do something like that. But either way, get involved. In the meantime, stay well, be healthy, play some games, relax if you can, and we'll see you next week on the Campaign Mode podcast. Thank you very much. We're out of here.